YouTube ever since 2018. That's 8 years ago.
I made this game in game school with two of my friends in 2019. Did quite well.
The first game I showed myself work on online was Overnova, which
I'll put the subtitles in case.
Willy Snell, which was a solo venture of mine. It did okay.
And a similar thing happened when we spent several months thinking that Thronefall was meant to be a card game. It was definitely not. That several months were never getting...
Very interesting. I made a Patreon post about cards, if you're interested. I think it's an interesting post that you should definitely... I'm sorry, I'm doing my own promotion here, but it's interesting. If you didn't read it, I talk about, do you need cards in your game? Often people default to using cards when they should not. So you should try that. You should read that.
And then, of course, Paul and I teamed up again to make Thronefall, which came out recently, 2024. Wait, that's not that recently, actually.
So now I'm in the fortunate position that I'm full-time indie game dev and I'm creating a new Unity project, about to repeat an unfortunate mistake that we've already made at least once in the past. Wait, do I even remember how to make a game at this point? Also, I got some expectations. We gotta make something good.
And so I got to work with Bracky's tutorial.
So we're making games in a team of 2 again. I'm once again teaming up with Paul. And
I'm predicting something. Let me know what you think. Jonas has been doing video games for a while. He, for the amount of time he spent making games in his life, he didn't release that many games. But they did better and better each time. And so I'm pretty sure right now he has like a pressure that is becoming bigger and bigger every time he's trying to work on something. And also he seems to have a very specific approach where he's trying to maximize everything. You know, he made videos about finding the right ideas and stuff. He doesn't seem like the type of dev that would pick up any idea and just go for it because he's vibing with it. He seems to be the type of dev that will explore the area, explore the space for a long time to find something that really works for him, for what he can do with a target audience and everything. And that is a trap, in my opinion. At some point, it becomes a trap, especially if you don't need the money, because you can just end up in like that weird void for potentially years, actually, where you're just switching from prototypes to prototypes because it's never the right one. And the truth is, there will not be a right one. There will just be the next one that he decides is the right one. That's my take, and we'll see what he's up to.
And one thing we really like doing is starting with a strong fantasy. Gladiators in an arena, battlebots. One thing that we're also doing this time, I guess to raise the stakes a bit, is we're going online multiplayer. Which is notoriously difficult, making a lot of developers shy away from it, for good reason, of course. We had some game ideas in mind, and all of them required a character controller of some sort, so I got to work on making a multiplayer character controller. The game ideas we had were very fantasy first, so as mentioned, the gladiators, or maybe some vehicular combat stuff. It wasn't really fully fleshed out yet, because for online multiplayer games you really gotta put in some upfront tech work before you can even really get to prototyping. For the online multiplayer framework, we decided to go with Photon Quantum, which I'm happy to talk about in a more nerdy video another time. So while working on the movement controller, we very quickly realized that this was already quite fun by itself, just jumping around on the little test boxes we had together, even without exploding cars racing around. So we kind of saw an opportunity to maybe make a little bit of a smaller game, because this is our first multiplayer game, and making a very big, beefy, chunky multiplayer game is the first multiplayer game.
Hot take: people with taskbars at the bottom like that are not hidden. Who are you, and what do you want in life? Like, what is up with you? Why are you not hiding that taskbar? You can just make it appear by going on it. Like, are you fucking nuts? you're losing that amount of space on your screen all the time, said the guy with the white theme. So it's the day, low poly. It's the day outside. It's the sky is bright. so white theme during the day, dark theme at night. It's always like that. It's how it's supposed to be. Literally everyone. It's fucking nuts. Like, the taskbar is not supposed to be there. Most of the time you don't need it. So just hide it. Oh my god.
All of a sudden, not appealing.
Honestly, try it. Try to hide it and you will see how better it is. How better it is. To be honest, on Windows, the detection to hide and show the taskbar is a little shitty. So it tends to be a bit finicky or take too long. But on KDE, you can see how good it is, because if you go on it, it doesn't necessarily open right away. You actually have to pull. You have to make it appear. You can see the little blue thingy at the bottom, and then you pull, and then it shows. So you don't show it by mistake too often. On Windows, it's a little bit shitty, so you can show it on mistake by mistake. I did it and drove me crazy because I lost all the time to wait for it to appear. Okay, it's because of Windows then. On KDE, it's much better. It's actually, if you know where you want to go, look at how fast it is. It's instant. I didn't switch to white theme as long as dark theme exists. That's not good. That's not good. That's not good. Think about your eyes.
A smart idea after.
Anyway, do what you want.
What if we remember our big game ideas for later and just try to make like a small stepping stone project to get into things? I mean,
can I intervene a little? They talked about something interesting that I think is a trap as a developer. I might talk about that one day. Maybe make a Patreon post about it. A very small Patreon post. So he said they made a character controller and made it multiplayer, and he said it was already fun. And I think this is a trap. My take on that is, when you make something, this is the I don't know how to call it, but I know it's an actual thing that is happening. When you make something, you tend to rate it better. For example, if you make a pizza, the enjoyment out of the pizza that you're making can be higher than a pizza that you bought. Even though it is less good, you enjoy it more because you took the time to make it yourself. You're biased because it's yours, exactly. The amount of effort you pour into something actually gives you a reward. And so, as a dev, it can be a bias because you work on something, especially if it's something new. Like, I can tell you already, I know the feeling that he has right there. The first time you make a character controller that is actually synced on the network, I've done it once in my life. I've done a small network experiment. The first time you make something and it actually moves on the other screen, on another window through the internet, it is crazy. The feeling is crazy. The problem with that is that realistically what I've done was probably shit and nobody cares about it. But it felt good because it was my own stuff and I spent some amount of time on it, right? So yeah, I wear all black anyway, so you're not going to use light theme. It's also good for like a day and then reality hits. Exactly, Animus. It's cool for a period, and then after some time, you can realize that it's shit. And depending on how much work you spent, I guess it takes maybe a bit longer. So maybe a good thing is you play it. If you think it's cool, you give yourself a few days and then you play it again to see how it feels now that you forgot the work, and you try to get someone to experience it to see if the actual thing that you've made is interesting or not. Same goes with your penis. Probably, yes. That's why it's always good to show your game to someone else. Yeah, exactly. Hello there. Hello, Broccoli. Broccoli, actually. I love the nickname. That's why it's always good to show your game to someone else. True. I agree. One thing to be aware of, though, depending on who it is, they might have a difficulty going past the look. So it might be better to show to other devs, because the other devs will have the ability to not look at the actual visuals yet and just get a feel for your character controller or something else. Whereas if you show it to someone random, they will look at like this and will be like, what the fuck are you talking about? It looks like shit. Not Jonas, you don't look like shit. Please
in
go
the
away.
slightest
Go away.
tried
Go away. Yeah, this.
obstacle course, which was
Imagine you're showing that to someone random on the street and asking if it's cool or not. They will be like, what the fuck are you talking about? This is shit. So it's also important to show it to people that are capable, I would say, at first.
most obvious thing to try. That was okay, but also pretty boring. A breakthrough occurred when I made the climbing prototype, basically just spawning a bunch of random moving blocks, partially moving blocks, and you have to climb as far as possible in 3 minutes, and whoever is the furthest up.
Interesting that he made it moving.
wins.
It's not something you see
Sometimes you have to,
in
like,
games like that.
But these levels work surprisingly well. For what I'm guessing, it's just a load of
considering
random
they're
cubes.
just freaking random cubes. No, I missed my jump. I fell all the way to the bottom. I was too greedy. It was a bit stressful to play, so as an experiment we tried turning it into a co-op game with some abilities, so you could place checkpoints and platforms that your teammates could also use, and you have to run away from the constantly rising water level behind.
What I find really interesting in its approach is that he's going somewhere almost blind. Do you see what I mean? Almost blind. When I start working on a game, I usually have an idea. I usually want to go somewhere. It seems... So maybe it's just for the small experiment that he said he wanted to do. Like, he wanted to make a small multiplayer experiments first before going into something bigger. But he doesn't really have an idea of where he wants to go. He's just fully exploring, which is honestly interesting. Because it takes time and effort to explore like that. So you're going to build a bunch of stuff that is going to be thrown away, which is normal when you're prototyping, but in this specific case, because you don't know where you're going, it might be difficult. But I guess he might be enjoying it, especially because he doesn't have the pressure of like time or money. So he might be like, yeah, you know what, it's fun. I experiment, I play test often, we see where it goes. So why not? There's an entire genre that is about climbing in 3D, usually without moving parts. Without moving parts, exactly. So that's why I thought it was interesting that everything was moving, because it's kind of a cheap way to make the level more interesting and also more replayable, right? And you see that, of course, in rage games. You see some of it is going to be moving, but not everything. And using the entire opposite approach of like everything is moving and maybe from time to time you have something that doesn't move so you can rest is interesting. It might be worth it exploring, because these games are usually low effort. Totally, Animus. I agree with you.
And you have to collaborate to not die and survive.
You have to play stuff. Interesting.
But it's cooperative, and there's a little more depth with different abilities you have at your disposal. This was actually surprising.
Oh, imagine a game like that. He said it was collaborative and stuff, and you have a bunch of abilities. Imagine giving abilities like you have classes. Imagine like an MMO, or more like an RPG. You have those classes. So one of you is like the healer. Maybe they have something if you fall to help you, like they can grapple you, or they can do something to come to make you go back. Another one is the builder, and they have like the capacity to build games and stuff like that. And then a third one would be one that goes fast, that can push the others. I don't know. Did you play Trying games? Similar vibes? No, I've never. Hey, Gatuno, how are you doing?
Felt strategic. It felt like everybody could contribute something to the team, but it also wasn't too stressful because the checkpoints meant that you could respawn anytime that you failed. As long as somebody's still in the game and can place a checkpoint for you, you can basically just keep going. So it was very relaxing and very collaborative, tactical at the same time. I also tested a versus variant of this with a couple of friends, where basically you have two teams of players going up against each other. So each teams playing in co-op mode, but against the other team, trying to go higher and survive longer. This was also extremely fun, but probably not feasible for a first-time online multiplayer game project.
This is an extension that you can do easily. You see what I mean? You can make the game cooperative first, and if it's doing well enough, you can add a PvP mode where you increase the amount of players that you have, and now you have teams against teams. I think it's definitely feasible, right? You don't have to do it right away. You can do it in a second stage if it works well enough.
Because if you do anything competitive, it needs to be super duper cheat proof. And I was not confident.
Okay, competitive is, that's a fair point to raise. Making it competitive
yet. We just put some new
needs to prevent cheating.
Tested a new forwards type of map. So in this map, you just gotta go forwards, not upwards. You have to go forwards. I added some.
I like the very unstructured look that it gives of all of those things, like randomly placed and stuff. It's pretty fun, honestly. It reminds me of Full Structure.
That wasn't very fun.
Hey, Dino Christ, thank you so much for the raid. Welcome, welcome. How are you doing? You're making a game?
Resources you get from those
Jackie codes
are always shared across the team. So it doesn't matter who in your team collects the collectibles. Everybody gets the same amount from.
Maybe I should be more clear.
From it. This also means that you don't necessarily have to be a front runner. You don't have to climb at the tippy top. You can also be a little further behind and just collect stuff for your team, which was like another play style this added to the game. Another mistake that I think we made during this phase is that very often we played it with a...
Hope you're doing good, Lion Christ. Some stuff lags for me right now. Animations are crashing Godot today. Oh shit.
We had a
oh shit, I hope you'll fix it.
This phase, like we really dug it. What we didn't realize is that it was a bit more tricky for other players because the game's not actually that intuitive. The rules need some explaining, and also the skill gap is actually a problem. If players with different skill amounts play the game, then some players can tend to feel a little useless. So there were problems that we didn't notice during that phase. Or I even kind of think we knew about those problems, but decided to strategically ignore them.
Gotta run with a bunch of updates for Guido Noble since you had linked in my report for the story. Okay, amazing, Wallen, thank you.
That one will come to in a little bit. In the meantime, we just kept making the game more beautiful.
Catch you later.
All of the blocks have like a rounded shader to them now, and there's like a better player character. There are different characters that all have different sets of abilities. We made a bunch of new block types like brittle blocks, bouncy blocks, lava blocks. Did a bunch of level generator work, like the level generator spitting out some really interesting stuff now. Obviously, there has to be a grappling hook, mother freaking custom leaderboard that allows multiple players per entry. So there's like a 3-player leaderboard, a 2-player leaderboard, and so on. To speak of our level select.
Hey, Peacebreaker, hello.
Just for every level that you play, levels are organized into cups, and cups can either be eternal or seasonal, allowing us to do stuff like seasonal events and so on. We were kind of even thinking this could become the co-op version of Trackmania. So you're using your collaborative effort as a team to race to the top as quickly as possible using your shared abilities. So we switched to a time-based high score table and made it so that collectibles also reduce your time. So that made for some pretty interesting pathfinding. Paul was also busy on the art side of things. He built this massive arena for the entire games to take place in to hopefully enhance the fantasy a little bit. Fantasy.
There's no fantasy here, right? They got sidetracked. They forgot the fantasy.
I don't want to be an astronaut. I want to be a dodo on blocks.
Yeah.
In an arena.
Yeah. They forgot the fantasy.
No worries, Timmy. I got just the game for you. So when somebody dies, I think I should at least give you the courtesy of telling you their name. We lost Dodo Derby on this wonderful Sunday.
Interesting.
It's really too soon. It's just way too soon. You've only been here for half a year. We nurtured you. We took care of you. We saw you grow. We saw you develop some real personality.
I haven't came up with my disrespectful comment yet, so I didn't say hi.
And now we stepped in.
Maybe you can make a comment about the fact that Markiplier played our game and that it's giving us a bunch of wish lists. If it up. Rule number 1. Yeah.
Back. Sorry, that was uncalled for. That was uncalled for. Dodo Derby. I'm starting to wonder if maybe the most difficult thing about making games or any creative discipline is just simply sticking to your own advice. One thing we really like doing is starting with a strong fantasy. It's so hard to do. Everybody has pretty good advice on how to make good stuff, but sticking to your own advice once you're in the weeds,
Yes.
it's surprisingly difficult.
Super
When Paul
interesting.
and I made our last big indie game, Thronefall, we spent way too much time prototyping random game ideas that weren't backed by a proper fantasy. That was our biggest learning from the Thronefall prototyping phase, was to always start with a fantasy because the results you get are so much
So
more
you see, this is interesting because this is kind of what we talked about earlier. I said I was kind of surprised at how he was like right over there, right? He was prototyping random things without knowing exactly where he was going, and he ended up canceling the thing because they were going nowhere, and that's what they understood from making Thronefall, and yet they made the mistake again. It's very interesting because you can make the mistake that you have made in the past again. It's very easy to fall into the trap, right? The use of the word fantasy is driving me crazy. It's a pretty good description, though. It's a pretty good description. How would you call it? What word? What would you use as a one-word way to say something that appeals to people, that they want to play, that maybe they might be even dreaming of? Like, it's fantasy is strong. It's not the same as a theme, though. Climbing in itself can be a fantasy, I argue, but you have to lean into that heavily then. True, Animus, the fantasy of climbing can be there, and this is what we have in a difficult game about climbing, or in Cairn, right? You would agree that the fantasy here is not playing as a bold dude, as a random dude, right? This is not the fantasy. The fantasy is using a cool mechanic to climb a world, which is the same as in Cairn, which is the same as in other climbing games, right? And the fantasy is different depending on the angle that you take. This is almost closer to a simulation, I would say. Cairn is closer to a simulation, whereas Juicent is closer to a story. You're climbing for the feels, for the world, for the environment. In Juicent, not really for the technique. It's not that difficult. Juicent is an easy game, I would say. Cairn is much more difficult, at least from my experience. And in this game, the difficulty is part of the fantasy, right? It is the getting over it fantasy. It is using that mechanic and climbing to overcome the difficulties. Cairn's so good in making atmosphere. Totally, I agree. I get what you're trying to say, and fantasy is also genre and a theme, so it's another meaning already. True, but many words in life have different meanings, and at some point you have to... I would say you have to adapt, and you understand what they mean, so that's fine. Or you start proposing a better word.
Appealing. The moment we decided,
I think it's fine. I think the fantasy is fine.
Everything started clicking into place so much better.
In the idea that you fantasize about it, right? It's a derivative of the word. Of the verb, sorry.
And I think
not the genre.
You know which feeling you're chasing. You know how it's supposed to feel like. And even more so, the player also knows how it's supposed to feel like, so it's easier to market and sell later on. In Thronefall, we made another fantasy-related mistake, namely that we decided to make it a deck-building card game. Would you like to be the ruler of an epic kingdom? Well, here you go, buddy. If you have a cool fantasy and you know how it's supposed to feel like, but you're not delivering on that, then that is a...
This is interesting. This is something I don't necessarily think about enough. The way you interact with the game really changes the way the fantasy, again, for a lack of better term, is being developed. So the sentence that he used a second ago, like, you want to be the ruler of a very cool kingdom, here you go, you're using cards. And it's like, yeah, okay, I didn't think about it that way. So of course, you could make very beautiful cards with interesting VFX and whatever, and I'm sure it would be fun. But it's true, it it doesn't necessarily work, even if everything is similar between this idea and Throneful, even if the management is the same, if the attacks are the same and everything, the actual way you interact with the game, because remember, it's a game, so gameplay is still like core, at the core of the thing, can change drastically how you experience the game. And a simple decision like, are you making your game top down or first person or third person or something, also changes drastically how you're invested in the game and how you see the game and how you enjoy the game, right? Very interesting. Very, very interesting. I mean, I knew that, but I didn't necessarily realize that the first idea you have about how a game should be played is not necessarily the right one, right? If it were when used in games, didn't still have its original meaning being used. I understand what you mean, but I feel like you're being pedantic for no reason, because appeal to word that means exactly what you're trying to say, and it doesn't have to change its meaning. I don't know. To be honest, I don't know. I think I'm gonna keep using fantasy because I think it works. That's two meanings for one word. Yeah, that's fine. There are plenty of games out, plenty of words out there that have a gazillion meanings. And it's totally fine.
It's a little bit of a hard sell to say, would you like to be an alien gobbledygook? I have the game for you. And then on top of that, the same as with Dodo Derby, the rules were too confusing. Confusing rules plus bad or non-existent fantasy is a bad combination. So we knew all of that. And yet we decided to make a game about dodos on blocks, on flying blocks. The story we were telling ourselves was that for the first time in Grizzly Games history, we were making a gameplay first game. Like, the gameplay is so solid, it's gonna carry this game. And we're just gonna slap some cute skin, like with the dodos, essentially on top of it. Now, slowly but surely, the realization hit us that the gameplay had problems that were not trivial to resolve. For example, the game is not very self-explanatory at all. It's just, the rules feel kind of arbitrary. You need somebody to explain the rules to you very specifically. The reason why the rules got so complicated is because we were trying to patch over problems in the gameplay, but it just got more
very interesting. So what is always interesting to take into what we have to remind ourselves is this is one way of making games. It's not applicable to everything. The Jonas way of making games with the fantasy, with the gameplay that solidifies everything, whatever. Some games are not like that, and it's totally fine. Some games are heavily story focused or are doing things that are weird and are difficult to explain, and it's part of the game. So it's not universal. It's an interesting way of thinking about stuff, but it's not universal. That being said, I wanted to say something and I forgot. That being said, this idea of the game is difficult to explain, and that is a problem, I can understand why it's a problem. Hey, New Junk, I'm doing fine, and you? Because there is complexity and complexity. For example, a 4X game can be complex, and you have to explain the rules. It's fine, because from the outside, you understand what it is, and you understand that it's complex, and you need to know the rules. Okay, you're with me. But with this type of game, you understand vaguely what it's about, but you don't really understand why it's fun or why is it different. And all of the rules, he said it himself, are here to patch problems. The rules are not here because they make sense to make the experience the best possible. They're just here because the base idea is not strong, and you're just trying to patch the holes everywhere. So you end up with a bunch of rules, and it's like, why this specific thing, right? This is interesting. And maybe you can find yourself, if you find yourself in a situation where you're trying to patch holes all the time, maybe it's because the core idea or the core gameplay, the core rules are not clear enough or not interesting enough that you need to patch them all the time, right? I'm just jumping in here, so I don't know the context, but is it a difference between the garden approach versus a blueprint approach? I'm sure there is a term for it. Doing good here. I'm not sure what you mean. I think finding the fun is probably more understandable than garden. Okay, so the garden approach, or the finding the fun, is like you explore stuff. You just drop yourself into a place and you try a bunch of things and see what is fun and what is not. Whereas the blueprint is like you're following a structure.
More and more confusing every time we did that. Let's forget all of that. Let's have a look at this from a completely different angle.
Yeah. I think sometimes you want to make a game and you know the genre and you know the rules roughly, so you're kind of following the blueprint. Yeah, that's true. Whereas other times maybe you only have like a game mechanic or an art style and you're trying to explore. But Jonas seems to be finding the fun. Yes, totally. The thing that is difficult with finding the fun is that he wants to have a strong fantasy for the game, so he cannot go anywhere. That's exactly what the 11 minutes of this video were showing. They were basically trying to find the fun. They found something that they thought was fun, but then they look at it from the outside and they're like, it doesn't look like anything. There's nothing. There's no strong fantasy. There's nothing grabbing people, you know? It's just like random stuff to make the gameplay work. Like you're playing dodos on random blocks because you need to work. It's like, I saw that vid some hours ago. So you get it, right? And it's very difficult to have both, I think, at the same time. Like having a strong fantasy and finding the fun is very difficult. I guess you can do both, but you need to do a bit of both. So maybe you go in a certain fantasy, and then inside of that fantasy, you give yourself the ability to explore. You let yourself explore a bit more. Get what we were talking about? If you saw the video, we were talking about like finding the fun or following like a structure more. Mechanics first versus a theme story first. Regardless which approach you take for prototyping, you should know your fantasy.
When we started making this game, I thought this is gonna be so chill. Like, we're in such a good spot at the moment. We don't have any financial pressure. We can take as much time as we want.
I called it.
Need this game.
I called it at the beginning.
Like, we are fine. So
I called it at the beginning of the video.
The most chill development process ever.
I talked about that.
Quite chill. But now I think what Paul and I are all of a sudden realizing is there's a lot of pressure.
Yeah, there is pressure. I called it.
Like, our own expectations.
I fucking called it.
What we can do, they're up there. We don't want to make some mediocre game. Like, Don't Dirty would have been fine. It would have been some cool mediocre game. It probably would have done okay.
He's not sure.
We're not content with that. Not every game we make needs to be a viral super hit. You know, you win some, you lose some. But we want to know during development, we want to feel like that there's a chance. There's a small glimmer of hope that the game's gonna do really, really well. That glimmer of hope, it just wasn't there anymore. Long story short, we scrapped everything. We went back to the drawing board, determined to just pick a great fantasy and to build a great game.
Oh, BattleBots.
That fantasy, following our own freaking advice. If I don't want to get yelled at,
I've been thinking about BattleBots for a while. Someone actually made the game I was imagining. I was imagining a Beyblade Auto Battler game, a Beyblade-like Auto Battler. And that's kind of like what you have with BattleBots. I was imagining about an Auto Battler, but I think people are doing it already with Beyblades. I feel like it's kind of the perfect genre. Like, you let people build stuff. You even introduce maybe a bit of physics and stuff, and then you let them play. The problem is that you would let them play against not just against bots, I guess, to make it very cool. So it would need to be a multiplayer game, and I simply can't do that. I think it's probably a gradient, because with all projects, there's some amount of finding the fun, having a fantasy you're trying to adhere to, just add some extra limitations or guardrails to your exploration. I agree. I agree, and I think finding the fun should not be done like it's not a one-time thing, right? It's not like at the beginning of the project you find the fun and then you just apply everything. At many points during development, you have to go back to a prototyping mode in a way where you try stuff and you're like, okay, I'm trying this. Is it working? Should I go there? Should I go this? Should I change that value to this or to that? There's always a bit of exploration. It's just that you explore the branch that you are in instead of exploring all of the possible branches at the beginning. You're like on a branch, a pretty solid branch, and then you're just trying to find like precisely in which direction you want to go, but the general direction is already there. And the guardrails also helps with they help with knowing where you go and what is the end goal, like what is the feeling you want to get when you play the game, or again, the fantasy. By the way, I missed a message from you. I mean, it's hard to make a good game in general, especially when you're trying to chase the fantasy rather than the appeal. It's hard to make a good game in general, especially when you're trying to chase the fantasy rather than the appeal. Peacebreaker, I know you said you were done, but I would love to, if you can expand on that. What do you mean? To me, fantasy and appeal can be the same. We can use them interchangeably. I was just joking. Okay. No pressure. Jonas is very self-reflective. Yeah. I think being self-reflective is one of the skill. I would say it's a skill, right? You can learn it. It's a skill that you need as a developer, or in general, as someone who is making stuff, you need to be self-reflective, but, big but, huge but you need to be self-reflective at the right time. It is very easy to judge your stuff before it's ready to be judged, right? I know I do that a lot. I tend to doubt the things I do the moment I start doing them, and usually it's not good. It's like you think about it, you execute, and then you look at it. You can't be self-reflective in the while you're doing stuff. Otherwise, you do nothing, and you're constantly changing things or canceling things. Leave the mediocre games for us players to make. You know what? I'm fine with making mediocre games because I think this kind of huge pressure, depending on how you manage it, this huge pressure can lead to one thing. Can lead to two things. It can lead to multiple things. Let's be honest, but it can lead to two major bad things, I would say. One, you're not happy with what you're doing. You're never happy with the stuff you make, and so you feel miserable. Two, you just make nothing. So what do you prefer? Do you prefer never getting a game from someone that you admire? Like, let's say, I don't know, maybe you love what Jonas is doing. What do you prefer? Do you prefer never getting games, or getting games that are good but not like life-changing? I would prefer to get good games, and I would argue that Thronefall is a good game, but it's not a masterpiece. You know what I mean? And it's fine. Like, not everything has to be a masterpiece, and not everything can be a masterpiece, actually. The fantasy you sell to your players is the appeal. Yeah. It's a skill for everyone self-employed or doing any kind of project. Yeah. But I think it's also a skill even if you're doing something as a hobby, you know? In your hobby, if you want to get a little bit better, being able to self-reflect is good. I mean, as a person in general, being able to self-reflect is good. But yeah, it was meh. Are you talking about Thronefall? You just want your 10 to 20k sales and you're good. Oh yeah, totally. I just want to be able to survive. That's the first step for me. I just want to be able to continue what I'm doing. I think the fantasy is what the dev has. The appeal is what the player gets. And there's the communication between the dev and the player exists, if that makes sense. Okay, the fantasy is what the dev has and the appeal is what the player gets. I don't know if I see it that way, because you could argue that the player will live the fantasy, right? So I'm not sure. Initial, but if I'm stressed making games, I want to have money and be stressed. You prefer to have money and be stressed? Yes. I think the reality, the truth is that no matter the amount of money you have, you'll still be stressed. It will not immediately get easier because you have money. It will just be a different kind of stress. And it's better to have a stress that is not, am I going to be able to pay for food or for rent, right? So I think I agree with you. I would prefer to have the stress of, am I going to make a banger game or an okay game? I think I prefer that. GRRM is your example for your second case. What is GRRM? Get ready with me? Me right now. Coach me a Lopdog. 3 minutes a day. Yes, 3 minutes is equal to $10. Absolutely hobby projects too, yeah. Would you rather have unlimited bacon and no video games, or unlimited video games and no video games? LMAO. True. Yeah. Mechanics first is a legit way to make games, emo, especially puzzles. Mechanics first is a legit way. Yes. I think you need something specific about that, though. When you're going mechanics first, you need the ability to come up with a fantasy, again, for lack of a better word, that is interesting, and it's not something that is inherently present. Like, you have to learn that. It's a specific skill. I'm pretty sure, actually, there are some people out there, and I've been part of that. You can think about cool mechanics pretty easily, but it's difficult to think about a way to show that mechanic in an interesting way. Like, give the player an interesting world to explore that mechanic. And sometimes I'm amazed at the opposite, at how people are able to create interesting games where the mechanics are relatively simple. And I'm like, oh my god, you can make games like that, basically, right? You can make games with very basic things because the setting is interesting. So it's really a skill to develop, and it's not an easy skill to develop, I would say. I think it's really not an easy skill to develop. The first heart attack is always the worst. The author of Game of Thrones. Exactly. Yes, but it's an example that I think we are seeing a lot. When people get successful, they tend to not continue. The developer of Obra Dinn has been stuck. I mean, I'm putting words into his mouth. It's not totally true. He has not been stuck, but he talked about it in a podcast, right? He said that he tried a bunch of stuff, but he didn't find the right thing. And I guess because of the low pressure, it's also, you're like, it's fine. And time flies, right? Time flies. You work a few hours a day, you live your life, and 1 year, 2 years, 3 years are going to pass, and you're not going to see it. So yeah, it's also a risk. Simple yet it works. Thank you, DevNut. People love simple mechanics with a lot of depth. Yeah, true. Because it's easy. It's also easier to sell, right? If you're showing something that people can understand in one clip, they're like, oh yeah, okay, I get it, it's this. And then what they'll have to understand in the game is actually how to make use of that to the biggest, to the deepest extent. I think you're just using the word now because you know I don't like it. I won't control you enough. No, I don't. I love Lexi Span. The only issue with it is that word games brings out a different type of people than puzzle games, even if the word is a puzzle game. People have different feel to spelling and coming up with words versus a visual puzzle or something, for example. Totally. It's way less logical. Puzzles are usually more logical, right? Mecha did it very well. I would go further with Mecha to explain why it's successful. I mean, there are plenty of reasons, right? It is big potential for it's clip farming. At its core, it's made for that, right? But I think it's also player expression. I would go further, but maybe this is kind of what you're saying when you're saying simple mechanics with lots of depth. It's not just that the depth exists in itself. Let's take an example. PoE, maybe? I don't know the game very much, so correct me if I'm wrong, but PoE is probably a simple game in like it's the way it works. It looks like Diablo, like you click on spells and whatever, but there is a lot of depth in the tree and in the complexity of the game, okay? But the complexity is already there. It's not, you don't create the complexity, it's already there. Whereas if you take a game like Minecraft, basically sandbox games, so a game like Minecraft, or in this case, a game like Make a Chameleon, you have a mechanic, and then you have player expression. You let the players express themselves. Some of them are going to be shit, but they are going to express themselves by being funny with their friends, by doing stupid shit, by hiding in weird places, etc. Some people are going to have a lot of fun being really good at the game. So I think it's an interesting kind of depth, because it's depth but with width at the same time, if you see what I mean. It's not just there is one hole and you can get really deep in that hole if you want, which is PoE. There is depth, but in the way you express. So it's more like you can actually, it's like flat, you know? You can go in different directions. Maybe I'm wrong. People like small number of mechanics, but large number of dynamics. Yeah, interactions. Basically, this is what games are about, right? What would you take? What would you take? Very super high fidelity graphics or incredible amount of interactivity? I would go with interactivity all the way, all the time. Like, this is what Noitai is doing so well. Noitai doesn't look incredible, but the mechanics and the level of interactivity between the elements and between like what you can do in the world is crazy. This is why people love it. This is the same thing with Minecraft in a way. There's a bunch of interactions, and you can interact with the world because you can literally reshape the world. And I don't get why AAA games are going into the ultra realistic stuff all the time. I think the truth is I do get it. They go there because it's easier in a way. You can just, if you want to go ultra realistic, the only problem that you have is money, because technically you can push the limits. You just need to throw money at it, right? You take more time to do stuff. You pay more artists. You go higher poly count, bigger textures and stuff like that. I'm not even sure about interactivity as much. Cookie clicker style games, very little interactions, but the mechanics interplay with creates interesting dynamics. Yeah, true. True. So interactivity can be in the game itself. It doesn't have to be you with the game. It can be the elements in the game are reacting with each other. Like, the game has things that are intertwined. It creates some sort of complexity in a way. Mecha did it very well. Mecha, or it's Japanese. Yeah, but I guess unfortunately the rule of the world is that we pronounce stuff as in English, right? It's easier to call it mecha if you see a C. Actually, in French, you would call it mecha. But yeah. Graphics sells easily on a screenshot, but gameplay doesn't. I think that's why they go that way. Yeah, true. That's also very true. I think a lot of people feel like things when it comes to words are harder because it's almost like I use them every day, but I'm smart enough to come up with them. Yeah, I see. It creates a niche within a niche. Yeah. Very true. Okay, let's continue that.
Fantasy.
Interesting discussions.
Our own freaking.
If I don't want
to
get interesting.
yelled at in the comments, then I have to say this is not the only
I
way
knew
to
it
make
would
successful
spark some
indie games.
discussions.
There are a lot of different approaches. You can also make very gameplay-oriented games and have them be very successful. This is just what works for us. But every time we don't do this exact workflow, we regret it afterwards. Looking at our old scratchboard, what was staring us right into our faces,
Arena Gladiators,
souls, was this. The Gladiator Fantasy.
Yeah.
I mean, we already have an arena in our game, so...
Okay. It's interesting, right? Because fantasy also is how the players will project. Right now, seeing just that, like you it's like you do combat inside of an arena. To me, it's less interesting. I understand why they dropped the previous idea about jumping up in like this weird environment made of cubes, because it's not sellable enough. But I could actually see myself having a lot of fun, especially with friends. Whereas all of a sudden, we are just at the beginning, right? I'm seeing like 2 seconds of gameplay with capsules, so I might be wrong. But right now, what I see is less interesting to me, because it's like another combat game. We are seeing that all the time. I can play many other games if I want to fight stuff with my friends. I feel like I need a good fantasy game to come out, a real one. I can't wait for Fable to come out. Fable. How do you call it? Fable, I guess, right? In French, fable. Fable. Yeah, Fable probably is going to be cool.
The Thronefall flashbacks are definitely real, because once again we got a bunch of beans fighting against each other. That's not necessarily a bad thing, it just means we got a bunch of experience with this kind of crap already. So this, by the way, is a very quick prototype. This took like 1 or 2 days.
One thing I'm gonna say, I know it's a quick prototype. Looking at this is just Tab Sports Wars. I see what you mean. One thing that is very interesting. Let me know what you think. I see the appeal here. Okay. Tell me if you see what I mean. I see the appeal here because of the view. That is the only difference. In here, I see the appeal because I get the sense of scale, right? I see a bunch of things. I understand that there is less green stuff than red stuff, and I understand that my character can have some amount of impact. And then we switch to that.
A bunch of beans fighting against each other.
Okay.
That's not necessarily a bad
Shut up.
It just means we got a bunch of experience with this kind of crap. Definitely shocked. They're like a bunch of...
Where's the... And then we switch to that.
Bad.
And here, all of a sudden, I don't see the scale. I don't have a sense of scale. You see what I mean? I only see what's in front of me, basically. Even though I'm able to see a bunch of players in the distance and whatnot, what I see when we are playing in a third person, what I see is this. I see 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. I see a 3v3, and that is it. So maybe it's a question of arena, maybe the arena is too big, maybe it needs to have way more gladiators, or maybe it needs to have a sense of scale, like some of them needs to be huge and whatnot. But interestingly enough, they are kind of the same thing, but the angle of the camera changes everything for me. This is appealing, this is not. Cool. Graphics are for the marketing team. Yeah.
A quick prototype. This took like 1 or 2 days to make with the systems we already had.
But let's see where they're going.
Pretty much agreed that the magic was back. We scoured Steam for Gladiator games, and what we found definitely shocked.
Not a lot of Gladiator games.
Because we kind of found nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing that was really serving the fantasy properly and doing it justice. There are like a bunch of 2D indie games. There are also a bunch of physics, simulation, combat games, which is also not what we want to do. We who are about to die.
Oh my god, you remember that clip? In the center. Character prominently displayed in the center. In the center. And it was not in the center. Anyway,
close
good clip.
Fantasy, but in terms of gameplay, we want to do some things quite differently, and also doesn't seem to have multiplayer. So we found some freaking free real estate. There's always a chance we could be wrong. Let's hope we're not wrong. But this looks very, very promising. Now here's maybe the hard.
Yeah, it could be that we don't care about gladiators at all.
You will never know. We will never know what could have been with Dodo Derby.
Okay. I thought they were canceling it again.
It's also a decision against something.
Yeah, saying yes to something is saying no to all of the other options.
Like, I'm sad for all of the games that are...
This is why it's difficult to make choices, right? Because when you say yes to something, saying yes is easy. But the reality is that when you say yes, consciously or not, you know that you're saying no to all of the other things. If you see it that way, let's say a game takes like between 6 months and 2 years to make. Let's say you want to make small games, so you take a maximum of 1 year, okay? how many years do you have left to make games? Realistically, I'm 30. I will make game until I'm like 50, 60. Maybe not after that, because I will be too old. And realistically, you can't make a game every year because you have to have time for like console porting or like taking time off and stuff. So maybe right now, maybe I have like 15 games more, maybe less, maybe a bit more. So every time I work on something, I basically say yes to one thing and no to a bunch of other things that I will never go back to because I will never have the time to do it. Wasn't For Honor kind of everything he's saying? Maybe, but For Honor is more like 1v1 in a way. You have, of course, you're fighting against other people, but it's less. I guess it's less what he's imagining, which is a bunch of things on screen at all time, and you fighting against AI with your friends, like PvE, but with friends. But For Honor is closer to 1v1, right? To no. For Honor minions do feel bad because of the perspective. What is For Honor minions? Like it's another game?
Not made, but like a different game is now.
There's 1v1 and 2v2.
That would not have been made.
You can do exactly that in tabs. You can control any of your minions. Interesting.
We don't know what could have happened. We don't know. We will never find out.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting because I think he missed the point a little bit. Do you agree with me? By thinking about the fantasy, which is gladiators, he reduced the scope so much that he became blind to things that are adjacent or like very, very close. You could argue that tabs is gladiators, because does it really matter if it's gladiators or knights? No, it doesn't. I think it doesn't that much. People don't care that much, right? So maybe he's missing the bigger picture that some of the games already do what he wants to do better, or just that they do it, because he's focusing on the gladiator aspect, which is like so fucking niche. Like, I don't know, the last time I thought about gladiators was maybe 15 years ago. I don't think about it every day, but thinking about controlling some sort of army or being part of that army, okay, I can think of that more often. Doesn't matter if the army is futuristic or a bunch of silly jelly things or fish or gladiators. I don't care that much. I care about the fantasy is closer to a bunch of stuff fighting in a messy arena, right? It's closer to that than to the gladiators themselves. You can use the gladiator as a way to think about the fact that there is going to be special things, an arena, people watching you and stuff like that can help. But is it that strong of a fantasy, that period of time? I don't know. But in team games, there are minions, etc. In the big map, there's no 1v1 anymore. Yeah, I see what you mean. You can do exactly that in tabs. You can control, or in tabs case, people don't care if it's gladiator or elephants. They just want an interesting army to fight. Exactly. You want something funny. You want something fun to fight. And if you're sticking too strong to gladiators, it can be unfun, because then it goes closer to a simulation, and maybe it's not what people are looking for. Knowing what Jonas did with his other games, I don't think he's going to stick necessarily to the gladiator theme that strongly. Like, I think it's fine to add things that are not realistic or like weird, right? I think he understands that. I think there is a game exactly what he's describing. Multiplayer and arena, a bunch of people fighting. Can't remember the game. Isn't that Gorn? But Gorn is a VR game. Isn't that Gorn? But I don't know if it's... It's very physicky. It's very physicky, so it's this one is different. Because it's closer to, but I mean, this kind of stupid movement and stuff at a bigger scale can be fun, actually. I can see that working really well at a bigger scale. So instead of fighting 1 or 2 things at a time, you're fighting hundreds of them. I think Chivalry too. But Chivalry is very... It's very, how do you call that? Very high fidelity, right? Oh, but you are on a battlefield. I think he wants to go closer to a party game. So, less serious. But yeah, it's interesting. Basically what I'm trying to say, maybe we don't have the full process, right? Also, let's remember that it's just a video, and we are discussing like 20 seconds of a video. It's totally possible that they explored all of those games and they just didn't talk about it. They just didn't talk about it because they wanted to say that in the Gladiator theme, and not necessarily the fantasy, but the theme of Gladiators, we don't have a lot of games. But I guess the fantasy that they're going for exists in a bunch of other games, like maybe Chivalry, maybe Gorn, maybe other ones. I don't know. It's fucking slow. I don't know what's happening. Okay, this looks cool. I thought it was very simulation-like, but maybe it's not. Chain Beasts, pretty cool game. Chain Beasts, yeah. Yeah, okay. The sense of scale, you have a bunch of people fighting. It gets messy, you can get attacked. Okay, this is cool. I understand why people like that. That looks actually pretty fun. Oh my god. The smallest price is $3.89. Adding to my wish list. And it's currently at $7.79 because there's a second edition. Wow, that looks pretty cool actually. Anyway,
we will find out about another thing that we would not have found out about if we had gone for that other thing. Still, it's sort of a hard pill to swallow. We will never know what could have been. We're making a freaking Gladiator game! Let's go!
Okay.
6 to 9 months that we spent on Dodo Derby, they're not really lost. We developed a lot of new skills during that time. Paul is starting to become a genuinely good 3D artist, single-handedly doing 3D models, animation, texturing. At the same time, I learned how to make online multiplayer games in a way that doesn't even really feel like it's slowing me down during development. It was a bit difficult to wrap my head around. Sometimes we get criticized for making it appear as if everything was super simple. No, it's not. It's actually difficult to learn these things. It requires time and effort, but I feel very well prepared now for whatever.
So it basically did what they wanted, right?
Make in the future. But I think this is where we say goodbye.
It basically did what they wanted. They wanted to get more comfortable with multiplayer and stuff instead of making the actual game. Like, they don't need to make it and release it. They learned what they had to learn. They made the mistakes, and so they can use all of that into their new game and make a better game. So why not? It was basically a learning experiment. Chivalry about chaos, destroying house, steal peasants, scream a lot. That's pretty cool. Okay, that sounds cool.
Open a new one, and we will start.
They're millionaires now. They can afford anything. Yeah, true. New project. Oh, using Unity 6. Oh my god, create project. Okay, the journey continues. Well, that was cool, Jonas. Excited to see what they're going to come up with. I'm gonna be real. It might be because this is closer to the final product, and this is closer to the very first prototype, but I have a hard time seeing this as very fun right now. But at the same time, I'm pretty sure they can do cool things. It's just that right now the arena is huge and it's flat, and there are not enough beans to make it interesting. But I'm pretty sure they will figure out something cool, right?
Multiplayer game we'll wanna make.
Whereas in this one, I can already see the fun. I can already see the fun in the Dodo game.
In a way that doesn't even really feel like it's
because it's like climbing stuff, and I get it. I'm like, yeah, okay, I understand it.
Sometimes we get criticized for making it appear as if everything was super simple.
But yeah, let's see the next one. Let's see the next one, and I'm pretty sure it's gonna be cool. All right, that was cool.